Hey everybody, and welcome to my review of the Mega Pokemon set, Vulpix Evolution Set. This set comes with 145 pieces and is recommended for ages 7 and up. And this set features two Pokemon, Vulpix and its evolution, Ninetales. We're going to start by taking a look at Vulpix, which I think has a pretty good design, but I do have a couple of issues with it, the first of which being that it doesn't have a printed mouth on its face. The other thing I'm not necessarily a big fan of is the hairpiece on top of its head. It does have some printed detail on the sides, which is cool to see, but the overall shape of it just feels a little off to me. My favorite part about this figure has to be the tail piece that's included. I think it looks really good. And Mega doesn't seem to have a problem making specific pieces for the tails of Pokemon, so I'm not real sure why they couldn't do the same thing for Vulpix's hair. Besides those little issues, I do like the overall design and I think it's implemented well for the Pokemon it's trying to represent. The last couple things I want to mention about this Pokemon is that little bit of hair at the front of Vulpix's head is a rubber piece for a little bit of extra detail, and it has some printing on the inside of its ears. Vulpix does come with a pretty good range of articulation. All four of its legs are on ball joints, so they can be moved out to the side as well as front and backwards. There's also a second ball joint halfway down Vulpix's legs, however I find them rather hard to manipulate, and if you try to force it into a position, it's going to pop the whole leg off. Which I don't think is necessarily too big of a deal, you just have to be careful when posing the Pokemon. The head of Vulpix is also on a ball joint, which allows the head to be moved side to side as well as up and down. As well as the tail of Vulpix, it is also on a ball joint, so it has some articulation as well. With Vulpix out of the way, we're now ready to talk about its evolution, Ninetales, who I think actually has a rather strong design. I was a little worried about the tails being too heavy for the Pokemon to stand up, but luckily they can actually help support the Pokemon. Ninetales has a rubber piece meant to represent some fur on the front of the chest, as well as having a relatively solid face print, and I love the specialized piece that fits on top of the head for that little bit of extra detail and shape. As the name suggests, Ninetales has, well, 9 tails. And I think they look relatively good for what they're trying to be, and I love the little bit of printed detail on the end of each tail. As far as articulation goes, the head of Ninetales is on a ball joint just like Vulpix, so it's able to be rotated side to side, and it can be moved up and down and rotated all around. The legs of Ninetales are also on ball joints, so they have the same range of motion. They can be moved forward and backwards, rotated to the side, and moved all around. And I think now's a good time to mention really the only problem I have with this Pokemon are its back legs. I do like the shape, but I feel like Ninetales' back thigh is a little too small. And because of its size, I do feel like it is a little awkward looking. The back legs are also on a ball joint, so they can be moved up and down, side to side, rotated all around. You get the idea. This Pokemon has some pretty good articulation. The tails of Ninetales can help support the Pokemon when they're facing downward, but they do have some pretty good articulation. The base of the tails are in groups of 3 and they're all ball joints, so they can be moved around. And at the end of each of these 3 pieces, there are 3 ball joints for the tip of the tails. You do have to be careful though, because the tails are really heavy and they can fall off rather easily. And I'm not real sure how I feel about the design of these tails. They are really heavy, and if they're not in any position to help support Ninetales, it's going to fall over unless it has some stud support. The last thing that's included in the set is this really simple base for you to place Ninetales and Vulpix on. And while its design is really simple, I do feel like it's necessary due to the weight of those tails. You can find this set online and in stores for about $20. Personally, I think this set fits the $15 to $18 price range a little bit better than the $20, but if you can find the set on clearance or cheaper than that, I do think it is worth picking up, especially if you're a fan of Pokemon. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more brick built reviews.